Eminence Ensemble.
Welcome back to All That Jam, where music has no limits. I am joined by half of Eminence Ensemble today. Is that right?
Yeah, glad to be
Yes,
here.
right.
How you doing, guys? Good, good. Why don't we just jump in with you give me the nickel tour about how it started. I guess you were originally a quartet and some of you guys came in after. Is that how it worked?
Not quite. So we started in Boulder, and they joined during the pandemic.
Okay.
When our other keyboard player and guitar player left during that time.
Okay.
But we basically started, the four of us, me, Nick, Tanner, and Zach. We started basically in high school in rival bands. And we would do battle of the bands together and, hash it out. We weren't the greatest of friends because there was that competition. But
healthy.
Eventually, we all graduated. We all moved out to Boulder. And so all of our bands kind of fizzled away. And then we were all down there. We're like, well, we know each other. We know how to play music. Let's start a band.
And
so that's basically what happened. And our first show was 2009.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I lived in Boulder for a hot minute. I worked at the Sink for about
nice.
6 months.
I just ate there the other day, actually.
I watched the OJ chase at the Sink when I worked there, standing at the front cooking burgers.
Wow. That's historical.
Yeah,
And hysterical.
Big time. Oh, all right. So in the beginning, I guess you guys had some vision for what the band was going to be. Do you feel like that came to fruition, or has that evolved?
Yeah, I think the genres we were aiming for has definitely evolved. I think that our message has kind of become much more clear since Dylan and Will joined the band, which I would say is just we play music for the people. We want the crowd and the band to all be one ensemble when we get together in a live setting. Just as a quick pitch there for you.
Yeah, one of our things that we like to say is no genre is off limits, but we don't want to just play like fast-paced prog metal for the entire show, right? We want to make it palatable for the audience and moments that you can put your arms around your friends, moments for the jazz nerds, moments for the pop nerds, everything, rock, anything is fair game for us.
Right.
We try and make a set that's well balanced and a lot of room to play off the audience.
We need more metal in the ham.
I agree with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Do that too.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, two guitarists. I always find that interesting. Are you guys? Is it two lead guitars, or do one of you focus on rhythm?
I would say. There you go. Yeah, I would say it's definitely a double lead guitar sort of situation, right? Like Justin and I feel like when we first played together, when I came out and auditioned for the band back in 2020, I feel like we just had this immediate sort of synergy, right? That is very rare to find with other guitar players. Both of us have played with so many other guitarists in various capacities, right? And there's different levels of connection you can feel, but it's really rare that you immediately play with someone and go like, oh, we are like cut from the same cloth, Yeah. So we sort of had that like experience and we were like, whoa, okay, this is going to be cool, So we have a lot of moments of like harmonized, like dual guitar shred, right? Mm-hmm. And then of course, lots of moments where Justin takes the sort of lead role and I'm playing rhythm and vice versa, and it's really whatever the music calls for. And I feel like generally in the compositions, you're more likely to hear Justin ripping the solos and playing the lead stuff. And then in the jams, of course, this isn't a rule, a hard rule, but in the jams, it's more likely that Justin is comping chords and I'm trying to put some sort of a lead melody on top of things, That's what I feel like our tendencies are. But yeah, really anything goes. It's funny when people are like, are you the lead or the rhythm guitar player? I usually say, well, both,
True.
There you go. I get Iron Maiden if Iron Maiden and the Allman Brothers had a love child, is the vibe.
Oh yeah.
I like that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Especially when I'll pull the guitar out and join them for the 3 guitars out front.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about songwriting. How do we do this? Does somebody just come with an idea? Do you guys all work together?
Well, I think it is all over the place, honestly. I think together we work really well in writing. We haven't got as many opportunities as we have like solo or duo writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of our creativity can stem from like an improvisation or something that we've made, but a lot of our ideas do develop in that individual space where we like basically, go till 3 or 4 in the morning, just kind of seeing what can happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done that, different sets of people, there could be 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, etc.
Sometimes
I would say it happens a lot more in those settings rather than the full band.
For sure.
Yeah. Will?
Yeah, when someone brings an idea to the band, I just want to say that everybody in the band has a great sense of humility in serving the song, in that we know what needs to be there and what our part is, right? There's no one person that's greater than the sum of, like, we play as a team. And so I really love it when Justin or Dylan will bring some idea to the band and it's like, I don't know, 70, 80% hashed out. And then we get to like feather and kind of sprinkle the song with our own flavors. So in a sense, we're writing it together, but it starts initially with 1 or 2 people just hanging out, being weirdos in a basement till 4 a.m. or whatever it is.
Yeah, totally. Justin and I, whenever Justin and I get together and write together, we call it music research nights. That's our little code name for it. Like, let's do some music research, right? And that means we're going to try to write some music together. And I can't speak for the first 2 records because it was before my time in the band, but Inside Looking Out was primarily written by both Justin and myself, mostly independently, actually. And, either it was like, oh, this is a Justin song or this is a Dylan song, right? And some of those songs, one of us came to the band and we're like, this is it. This is how it's going to be. And, of course, like tweak the parts to make them but like, this is the song. And then there were a few songs on there that were more like Will said, okay, I've got this thing. It's like, 70, 80% fleshed out. Let's get together and play it together for the first time and really figure out how all these things are going to fit together and how we can make it the best and add the EE spice on top of it, But I think anything goes. The future is pretty, I don't know. We'll see. The future is unclear in terms of how we're going to approach the next thing that we do when it comes to the writing side of things.
Right.
There's a lot of things floating around in the ether.
You have multiple lyricists?
Generally, I feel like Justin is our main lyricist, and I don't really consider myself, a very good lyricist, but every now and then when I write a song, I feel inspired to write about something in particular. So sometimes I'll take a stab at it, but a lot of times I'll be like, hey, Justin, I got this melody and I don't know what the heck to say over it. Right. Like, why don't you do something
to it?
Yeah. And Justin can be very poetic in that way with his words. So it's mostly him, but
apparently that's how Box of Rain was written. Phil went Hunter and Hunter wrote the lyrics out for him. So
wow. Nice. Well, there you go.
There you go. I was going to say, I felt like there was a lyrical consistency over the 3 albums that I could tell that they came from the same place, I guess. Do you feel like that's true, Justin?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I've been, growing my skill, I guess, in lyricism, which is hard to even call it a skill. It's kind of just being able to tap in what's there and extract from it. But yeah, I think in the earlier records, Nick Baum, our percussion player / lead vocalist, he was a pretty big part of lyric writing in those first 2 albums. And Tanner, our drummer, even threw in a couple lines in I think in Swim and in Great Celebration.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah, I think, we kind of have gathered this sense of taste in terms of lyricism, where, you know, if one lyric is maybe not up to that standard that we've created, we may toy around with it and manipulate it to where it is on that same level. You know, we like to keep it relatively timeless, as they say, where you're not really, you know, catering to one thing here or there that's current.
Timeless is good. I tell you, who's the master of that is that Billy Strings guy. You listen to his song. Was that you're like, was that written last week or was that written 100 years ago?
Yeah, was that the first country song ever written? Yeah, he's incredible.
I usually don't get into specific songs, but I just say, I got to tell you, that song Flip Side, that is a hell of a hot little tune there and fantastic lyrics. I have this problem with a lot of jam band that's, I feel like the lyrics are an afterthought. And the best bands have somebody else coming in. The guy helps write with Goose, whoever that is, and Tom with Fish and all that. I feel like sometimes that's, you know, the best way to do it. But a lot of bands, I feel like it is just an afterthought and they don't see that as part of the craft. As a complete left turn on.
Oh, fully agree.
Yeah. We would agree with that.
Yeah, that was this guy.
Me? Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the songs that I actually wrote the whole thing for, when, you know, going back to what I said earlier, sometimes it's fully fleshed, sometimes it's not. That song, I just wrote it, all of it, lyrics included, like in like a 5-hour span. It was probably the most efficient songwriting I've ever had in my life.
The muse, you had the muse with you.
There was something in the air that night, you know. And a really, really quick little tidbit about it is that I wrote it during the last time they did the Holidays Festival, which I had been to twice before, and I really, really wanted to go that year, but I wasn't really able to afford it, couldn't really swing with my schedule, and I was feeling really down that I wasn't there, like really feeling like I was missing out. And I was like, how can I cope with not being on the beach listening to some of my favorite bands right now? What can I do? It's like, let me write a song that makes me feel like I'm on the beach. And then I wanted to go for this sort of like this playful juxtaposition between like a happy, bouncy sort of feeling of a song, but the lyrics being a little bit more about something like a little more heady, you know, about getting stuck in your routine and wanting to free from it and taking a drastic measure to do that, only to realize that you actually were happy where you were and the grass was always greener on the other side, right? And I was like, so if I can kind of juxtapose that message with something that feels very positive and happy, I think it could be a cool thing. And then Flip Side was born that way.
And there you go. It's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about, you have a song like Flip Side. It's on Spotify. It's got some numbers. One of your other songs had a big number next to it. I'm losing it off the top of my head. It had 20,000 some, but you know, it's the kind of song I feel like independent radio at some time, it would have gotten a larger audience. How do you guys deal with the fact that the internet today, social media, everything so floods everything? How do you feel like you can break through that so people can hear your stuff?
I just cry myself to sleep every night, you know? No, I'm sure Will and Justin have some interesting thoughts on that.
You know, I try and honor it because it is a large part of the game nowadays, but I don't let it dictate my emotions or my goals. You know, first and foremost, we want to be authentic to the music, and we don't want to like pander or spam people to try and get it to bigger numbers. We want it to be natural as much as possible, but we do our best to plan on the back end of it and send it to the right playlists and get our friends to, you know, play it and send it to their friends. But ultimately, you know, it's not about the numbers. It is about the numbers, but it's not about the numbers for us. We just want to make sure that people are enjoying it and it's getting to the right ears. And sometimes for me personally, having a spiritual kind of mindset around it helps me navigate it a lot, and just kind of like treating it like, okay, this is where the energy is going. This is where we need to put our energy, and not, you know, get myself so down with, oh man, this song only got 10,000 and I wanted it to get 50,000, you know. That's kind of where
my partner on this other channel I have called Walk Plus hates when I'm like, we got this many views on the video and I'm giving him statistics. He's like, you're not making it fun. And I'm like, all right, I'll just pay attention to it quietly over here in the corner then.
Yeah.
It's
But just kind of
important.
being okay with the results, whatever they are, and focusing on progress instead of the results.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is music nowadays, and I guess has always been a business. You're in sales, so you're trying to promote yourself. And we came from, the tail end of the school of thought that was like, we don't need the internet. We need to tour. We need to make CDs, all that. And kind of within us growing as musicians, saw that whole fallout of the record industry and streaming and all that. So I think we're like kind of new at it. We're practicing it. We're throwing everything we can at the wall, and a few things have stuck. And yeah, we're kind of keeping an open mind about how to go about it and how to like keep our brand, right there with it.
Right. For as long as you guys have been around, 15 years or so, why so few albums?
That's a great question. First, I think the moment between Mouse Hunt and Real News, we were touring a lot, and we were trying to spread the word like that. And we were also writing when we had the time, but we didn't really have that much time for writing. So when we did, it's a big task to write a song in this band, just because there's 6 members and they all are creative, and we don't want to write just a ABABC song. We want it to be proggy. We want it to be interesting, but also still palatable. Right. So I think we were kind of finding our voice after Mouse Hunt, because Mouse Hunt was like, oh, these are all the songs that work when we're playing at house parties and we're doing these jams and all that. Right. And then Real News came around. We had more lyrical content, I would say, that was a little better. Right. And I think our style was coming into our own. And then once we got that out, we learned a lot of things through that album, especially engineering side of it. And then once these two came in,
it's hard to figure it out.
Yeah. They kind of blasted the creative side into the atmosphere. We were able
so COVID was a turning point, I guess.
Big time.
Very much so.
Big time. And we had the time.
Right. To talk a little bit about that. I've heard from a lot of musicians that, getting off the road, was a complete eye opener after years and years. I had Mark from the Disco Biscuits tell me that he practiced more than he ever had in his life during COVID.
Oh yeah.
Good on
I guess I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Since we're on it. I think getting over the general fear of it all and the whole state of everything. And that year was kind of crazy, just one thing after another. But, I was still working off a W-2 job. So I was able to make unemployment and kind of pay my bills still. While my girlfriend, she was working outside of Denver. So I had a lot of free time. And I had my computer, and I was like, I'm not going to crawl into a hole and die during the pandemic. I'm going to use it to my advantage. And I think we all did in a way.
Well, yeah, I guess from my perspective, the pandemic is kind of what really presented me with the opportunity of being able to join this band, because they had another guitar player up until then. And he, after a few months of lockdown, I think came to his own conclusion that he wanted to make a change and pursue a different path. And that then allowed a space to open up for me to eventually come in and fill. And it was, I came from New York and I was playing in a different band at the time, and I uprooted my entire life and moved all the way across the country to Denver and joined these guys in June of 2020, maybe July of 2020. And so that was the biggest change I've ever made in my life. And I don't know, I think just by nature of having a new lineup in your band, it's going to bring a different energy and a new fresh perspective, which is going to bleed into the music naturally. Right. So I feel like very shortly after I moved out here was when Wil also then joined the band, and the previous keyboard player had left. And so with the two of us in, as a result, I think, of the pandemic, really, whether directly or not, it allowed us an opportunity to kind of start fresh, right, and figure out what we were. And bringing it back to the previous question, I think it took a little while for us to get an album out with that new lineup, because we had to really develop that synergy as a band, and it took a little bit of time, right? And we eventually figured that out and what we wanted to go for. And now that we've done it once and we have proof of concept, like, hey, we truly believe that this could be our best album of the three, so let's just keep going up and up and up from here. You know, now I feel like we have some momentum to really hopefully increase the amount of output in terms of music that we're putting out into the world. So we'll see.
There you go. I hear you. So let me ask you about set list. You get two new guys in the band, Justin. How do you go with the back catalog? Did you say to them, learn everything, anything's on the table, or did you take that as a chance to maybe retire some stuff? You're muted, buddy.
Justin.
Great question. So the set list, we basically, with Dylan, we're like, hey, learn 3 songs, come out and audition. I think he learned 12 of them. So he was very eager to just get in, check out live videos, check out all the studio recordings, see what harmonies I'm playing. So he was kind of pursuing our song list just from the beginning, I would say. And Wil started off as a sub. And so we worked through each set list, and we kind of built that first set list, played a few more times, and we're like, hell, you should be in our band. And by that time, we had gotten through, I would say, 20, 25 of our songs.
Okay.
And I will say that quite a few songs were retired when they joined, just because either they didn't quite fit our style after they joined, or we just didn't learn them because we have so many songs, and it, just like writing the song, it takes a long time to learn it and figure out what it's about. So I think as time went on, we just kind of would add 2 or 3 new songs, a new cover, and we've kind of pretty much filled in all the blanks. There's a few really old songs that we could bring back, but we're writing so much, it's hard to justify that.
One of the things that I loved about our set lists early on, it's true that Dylan learned like every one of the songs before his audition, and like honestly knew him better than some of the people in the band at the time, which I fucking love. And that professionalism was across the board with all 5 of them, but the creativity was just like open-ended. So like I would suggest things like, I'm a jazz and classical pianist, tried and true, and then I learned how to play in jam bands over time once I moved to Denver, and learned how to do organs and synths and clavs. Oh my. But they would allow me to be like, all right, well, in flip side, we've got, this well, that's a bad example because I joined before we wrote that, but I would put in Clair de Lune and Bach and like things that are transitions, or they would let me use my compositional brain, which we all have, but I'd be like, okay, this is the chord progression that we need to jam into to get to this song, or X, Y, and Z. So it really felt like a fluid thing. And it felt like we all knew our roles. And it was, again, about serving the music and serving the audience and the energy at the time.
It's fantastic. Love it. Love it. So improvisation, huge part of your live shows versus studio, which I like to call the artifact because it's stuck in time there. And the living creature is the song. So how do you guys approach creating the tension and release in your improv? It seems like you're very good at building, dropping it in. Are there cues, techniques? Do you guys practice that?
I think Dylan should take.
Sure. Yeah. Wonderful question. First of all, I mean, let's just take a second. Shout out to you, Kevin, for coming up with awesome questions, man. This is great. I appreciate it. It's cool. I don't know if anyone's ever really asked that exact question before. So, I mean, we have a number of different techniques. We try to, whenever we rehearse, we try to incorporate jam exercises in our rehearsals. Sometimes we're cramming for a gig and we don't get to spend as much time as we'd like to on that. But when we do, we have cool exercises that we try to do just to like to sort of develop communication between the two of us in the unspoken communication, right? And so I feel like what we're trying to do is just get closer and closer with every show and every rehearsal to that place where we can just anticipate each other's tendencies like so well that we know where things are going to go, right? And we're not exactly there yet, but that's the end result. That's where we're trying to get. And, you know, we have a number of ways to sort of streamline the process. Like a lot of bands in the scene, we do use, you know, we have a talkback mic system. And a lot of times it's most of the time it's myself and our drummer Tanner using them, whereas Tanner will use them more so for compositional moments like, okay, we're going to the next section, whatever. Whereas in improvisation, I'll try to create a lot of tension and release by calling out specific chord changes and sometimes saying, okay, you guys drop out, you know, and then come back in with this or whatever. All right, we're going to move to this chord. Let's completely change the feel. And sometimes I'll even say, all right, we're going here. Remember what you played, because in 5 minutes we're coming back to it, you know, and like try to challenge everyone. Like, don't forget what you were just doing, because we're going to go far off, create some tension and build and build and build and drop back into what we were doing 5 minutes prior that hopefully the audience forgot about at that point. And then it comes back and it's like, whoa, you know, we're still doing that. Right. So I'll try to sort of quote unquote quarterback a lot of those changes while we're improvising, but it's not always just me. You know, there's a whole bunch of different ways that we build tension, and I think the biggest thing is just listening. And I'm guilty of sometimes not listening as closely as I would like to what everybody else is doing. You know, I always try to remind myself, just listen. You know, if you don't have something to say, don't say anything. Just let everyone else speak. Figure out what your role is in this moment and see if you can catch on to somebody trying to hint with their part, like, hey, let's increase the energy here, or let's bring it down, you know, things like that. So it's constantly something we're trying to really refine and get better at with every show. But, you know, we have a couple of ways to sort of streamline it until we reach that place of like, we're all, you know, we have that synergy and vibrating on the same plane, right?
Anything to add?
Justin?
Yeah. I would say in terms of like listening, that's probably the most important part. We've learned to really hone in our mixes, because if your mix is all off, because we're in in-ear monitors, you could be missing, you know, I could be missing a guitar melody that I could be putting a harmony over and just taking it to the next level. But instead I'm accidentally playing over him because I can't hear him. And that, but also, let's see, we do occasionally write what we call a Stormy Daniels jam. And it's basically like a 2 to 3 part song that is the foundation for a jam. Okay. So we'll like have a riff that maybe we wrote in the studio when we were jamming out. And then we have a B section that we can go back and forth. And then the C section, we improvise multiple arrangements of that kind of thought. And that also adds to what we do. And I just want to add too, we get really inspired from the bands that we listen to. I will say we played at Beanstalk, and all the bands that we were hearing as we were setting up, we were very inspired by them and definitely improvising in those similar ways. Like we like to see
osmosis.
Yes. Yeah. We like to take it in. Yeah.
I'll add one little tiny thing for all the theory nerds out there. Sometimes in rehearsals, we practice what we call breaking and then falling back into it. And we'll break into like we're in a major section. We'll break into a diminished chord for like 2 bars and then create as much tension as humanly possible and then drop back in. But we like Dylan said, we like that stuff to happen naturally more often than not. But we do run some exercises and practice those things as well.
Right. When you have a band like a quartet and it's got keyboard and guitar, one of each, they usually both go lead, you know, play off each other. You guys have the 2 guitars that are doing the dual guitar attack. Where do you fit in the keyboards? How do you see what you do? Do you see yourself as a lead instrument, or are you something that's being a bridge and bringing everything together?
Great question. It depends on the song and it depends on the moment. Both are acceptable for me. But ultimately, my driving force is I want to hear what needs to be there. No more, no less. I want to support if I hear them going off into crazy guitar harmony territory. I don't want to step on top of that. I'm going to be doing pads and building textures and building the song as if, things that people don't know that are there sometimes, but need to be there. And if they're not there, they're going to miss them a lot. But there are those moments where I hear both of them doing just some cool rhythmic funky thing. And I'm like, okay, it's time to go synth over the top. Right. One other thing that I kind of like to do, but I'm trying, to find a balance of it is what I call octopus arming, because I just love having like 6 keyboards around me and I'll get like 6 different tones going, but it's not like I'm playing like melody or a pad. I'm creating like almost like an orchestral sonic landscape that's very unique. Right. So the two of them can go blast off and do whatever they want.
Right. And sound engineers love him for that.
I bet they do. Yeah. It's been very interesting watching Mel over the past couple years, adding Nate Wilson in, because they were the 2 guitar attack. I mean, that was my thing with Mel. I was like, I like you guys because you don't have a keyboard. Like Government Mule added a keyboard. I was over him. I just wanted dirty blues.
Well, and there are those moments too where it's just like maybe we enter a jam and it's just Zach and Tanner doing bass and drums, and then I'll just take like a little bit of like not a jazz piano solo, but I'll just kind of play a little blues, and then like that will lead into a new jam. It doesn't need to be having all of us playing at the same time. Although oftentimes that is how jams peak.
Right.
I hear you. The last album, who did you guys do everything in house? Did you have an outside producer? Where was the studio?
So we recorded like the most of it, except for the electric guitars and like certain synth overdubs and stuff. We recorded everything else at Colorado Sound Studios in Westminster in Colorado. And we had a great engineer named Don Barry who did all of the recording for us. And then I took all of the tracks. I'm an audio engineer by trade outside of playing in this band. That's what I do professionally. So I mixed the album and in doing so, produced it. And so did Justin. I think Justin also had a really large hand in the production aspect as well. So really, aside from the mastering and the actual recording of everything except the electric guitars, we did all of it in-house.
Okay. Do you see the studio recording? I mean, do you look at it and try to emulate what you've done live with the songs, or do you separate from it and say this is going to be its own thing?
Oh, that's a good question. For me, I think so. I kind of come from the background of, really like learning cover tunes like exactly as they were. And I'm getting better at finding moments where, it feels better, I think, to maybe kind of do your own thing, right? But I was sort of raised as a guitar player on the like, if you can nail it exactly as it was done on this really popular recording, which became popular for a reason, namely the way it was done, right? Then, you can create that experience again in a live setting. So I don't know. For me, I feel like the process of actually recording a song really brings a lot of clarity on what needs to be there and what doesn't. And I think it's wise to sort of try to emulate that in the live setting because it works. It's the best representation of the song. However, I think like it's okay to do that because so much of our live show is improvisational and jamming. So I think it's pretty cool to like recreate the songs in a very familiar and true and faithful way, and then take all of the jams as your opportunity to make it completely different every night. But that's just sort of me. I'm curious what the other 2 guys have to say about that.
You first, Jesse.
Yeah, I think this last album is pretty much 50-50 songs that we played live before we recorded it and songs that we had never, it's the first time they were ever heard. So I would say in those songs that we did have, we were able to kind of hone in on cool new things that worked, or old things that may have been in like a demo recording that may have not have worked. So we had a chance to kind of see how a live audience would react to these parts before we really made that decision to put it on wax, as they say. And then the other half was just straight studio. It was kind of that magic that we were trying to create. And I'm excited to see where those songs go once we start playing them, because they're going to be hard to remake exactly like the studio version.
5th of July comes to mind for what Justin just said. And I'll just chime in with, conversely to Dylan, I was on the opposite side of the spectrum, being raised near 18th and Vine, the jazz district in Kansas City.
Right.
It was like, you don't play it the same way twice. Like, don't show up if you're going to play it the same way twice. So I had to dial that back, because obviously what Justin said is very accurate. It's a half and half kind of thing, or like, we want to honor the composition so we can improv in the jam territories. But I'd be lying if I said I did it exactly the same every single time. And I like to add just little bits of flair or little bits of change. And that's me as a personal player. Like, jazz is my home. So I find a balance of how to do that, but it doesn't take away from the song, and it doesn't take away from the melodies that people know and love. But yeah, it's an interesting balance that we strike, but we lean more towards the composition is how the studio album is. Improv is free territory.
I like that, because I feel like another problem, I'm gonna poop on jam bands again, is they don't take this studio seriously. They're just trying to recreate what they did live without thinking it through and saying, let's nail down an arrangement exactly the way it is. We don't ever have to play it live like that, but let's have the artifact. Thus the artifact.
Definitely. I think we also, the three of us, and I think everyone in the band, did come from that like studio recording, not necessarily, because I became a jam band fan later. Like, I was a metal kid and all that. So Dylan and I have talked a lot about, like, when we were making the album, like looking back on all these albums that had changed our lives and why they did, you know, like what, like keeping that same, you know, spirit moving forward and trying to create an album of ours that's like that, you know, in that timeless realm.
Right. So sometimes, like Tom Stoltz there, you got to take 6 years to do your first album and then 4 to do your second.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is one of the most legendary classic rock albums ever made, right there behind it. I mean, it will live on forever. It's absolutely iconic, right? For that reason.
I got to see him on the Third Stage tour when they did Amanda. Names haunted me. My ex-wife was an Amanda. But they played everything off of all 3 albums. I mean, everything. And then they played Smokin' a second time because nobody would leave. It was truly an encore. Like, the lights came up, nobody left, kept screaming. They came back out and played Smokin'. And I was like, these guys are okay. Even though they only have 2.5 hours worth of songs total, that's their whole thing. But
oh, that must have been awesome.
Yes, fantastic. I guess the guy Brian Delp or whatever has passed away since then. So I don't know if they'll ever tour again. I think he was the one keeping it alive. So where are we finding the album? Can we get an actual physical copy, a CD, a vinyl, anything?
I wish the answer was yes. Right now, there is no physical copy of the album in production at all, but we really wanted to put it on vinyl. I would love to still put it on vinyl at least one day. We will see what the future brings. I really want to be able to hold that album in my hands, you know, but at the moment, it's all just digital.
Right. Taper's Choice and a guy named Scott McMicken, who used to be in a band called Dr. Dog. He has something called Press On Records that they only do tapes, and then Taper's Choice they only sell tapes, which I find fascinating because who has a tape player? It's like, why are you?
Yeah, it's
I got
cool.
my 77 Impala out back with the tape deck in it. So
I mean, it's kind of making a comeback in a way. A lot of people, I see tapes at merch booths pretty frequently these days, especially like in the indie scene, in the indie rock world. Like when I used to live in Brooklyn, a lot of bands were selling cassettes of their records because it's like, you know, it's the hipster thing to do, right? Nobody's got one, so it's cool.
I saw a picture of Morrissey's merchandise, and he was selling signed records, but they were other people's records, and he just signed them. like Iggy Pop record, and like $500 they were asking for it. I was like, what is going on? I'm going to just sign some.
That seems
insane. Yeah, let me just sign
his favorite albums or whatever kind of thing. But I was like, that's bizarre.
That is bizarre.
You guys are on Bandcamp, right? We've mentioned the streaming services. Obviously, are there. You're better off Bandcamp. Somebody could drop you a couple bucks if they liked it. There, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're on nugs.net as well. So if someone wanted to get a CD of any of our live shows, they could do that too, which is cool.
You're on Nugs
and all the normal platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, that stuff.
And you guys have merch, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yes. Currently, we're re-upping on merch, just because we're going to be playing in Texas a few times before the end of the year, and we want to make sure that people have some things to buy. But we're trying to get some more unique merch ideas as well. We've done CBD in the past, and even Tabasco sauce, and like really cool snowboard hats and stuff like that. So keep your eye out for that, because we're going to be putting it up on the website very soon.
Hot sauce is a brilliant thing. I sold real estate for years, and I used to give out hot sauce, and it said the market is getting hot sauce, and it had my ugly face on it with all my information, and it ended up in their cabinet. 6 months later, they open it up. There I am staring at him still from the cabinet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have a song that we did with Chris Myers from Humphreys McGee on drums, and it's called Heat Stroke, and it's probably our heaviest song we have. And if we were to do like a run of hot sauce in the future, I think we would be silly to not call it Heat Stroke. It's the perfect name.
Oh yeah,
definitely. He's like Robo Drummer now with that new shoulder. I was calling it Chris Myers surgery, and people were like, "What are you?" I was like, "It's Chris Myers surgery now."
Right.
Like,
no, he's going to be way better than all of us.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, do we have any new songs? Anything not heard that's going to pop up?
Yeah, we've got lots of new material floating in the ether right now at various stages of completion. But we're sort of right now, we've been talking a lot in our meetings and powwows, if you will, about what our next moves are musically. And we're going to go into the studio soon, and hopefully in the beginning of 2025, you're going to see some new material from us in like the first quarter of the year or so. The basket of ideas right now and like different demos is so vast. We have to kind of go through like a sort of refinement process to really figure out what exactly is going to make the cut at the moment for the next thing. But I don't know, there's a particular song that I'm very excited about that nobody knows about yet. That's called Mummification, that Justin and I wrote together on one of our research nights, if you will. And that one is, I think, really, really fun and very unique and very much us. And so I will be pushing to get that one out as soon as possible.
We'll have to get it on the Halloween Spotify playlist there.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning, until we get to that point in the studio, we've been revamping our social medias. So if you guys are listening, you want to support us, please follow us along on either the Instagram, TikTok, whatever your flavor or choice is. We're working on being consistent with our posts and putting out very high quality content, with us just being the weirdos that we are, but also showing off a little of the musicianship and the behind the scenes. So again, if you really want to support us, go follow us on all the socials, please.
I know a lot of people like to fly off the cuff with the social media, but scheduling is your friend.
Yeah. And I come from the consulting realm. So I really wanted to hammer that home, and I'm just so proud of the whole team for stepping up to that level, especially since it wasn't natural to us. Like Justin said, we kind of came into the tail end of internet's not important, but we're touring. And so we're not boomers, but we are millennials, and we're doing the best that we can, and we're improving every day.
If you had asked me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have told you I'd be doing this, but COVID hit. And when I said, I'm going to do a podcast, I started a YouTube channel, started this thing. Oh boy, what can we do? Where are we playing? When do we get on the road?
So we've got, let's see, our next run of shows throughout the rest of this year, of this calendar year. We have a couple of like long extended weekend runs that we're doing. We're going down to a small small town right outside of Austin, Texas, for 2 nights at the end of this month, at the end of November. And we're doing what we're calling a Friendsgiving run, playing 2 nights at a really awesome private venue called Rancho Relaxo that we have been to a whole bunch over the past few years. Great spot, wonderful people. We love it there, and they seem to really like us there. So we're excited to return there.
Just you or multiple bands?
It's us with support from an Austin-based band called My Next Door Neighbor, and it'll be the 2 of us for a 2-night run, and then after that we have a little bit of time off in December in terms of playing, and then we have an annual holiday show up in Frisco, Colorado, at 10 Mile Music Hall on December 21st. And we're excited for that one. Then a little break for the holidays, and then we hit the ground running with an Humphreys McGee after party for on December 28th. And we're going to have Jake Siniger and Joel Cummins from Humphreys sit in with us and play with us for a lot of that show. So we're very excited about that. And then 2 days later, we're playing a Goose after party in Austin with Scott Page, who played with Pink Floyd and Toto and Supertramp on sax. And he'll be joining us. And we're going to do a whole Pink Floyd experience show after Goose.
I spaced that. Tell me about how that happened. You guys have done Dark Side of the Moon all the way through with this guy before, correct?
Yes, we've done it 3 times with him now at this point. Yep.
So how did that happen?
I feel like I've been speaking a lot. Does anybody else want to talk? I'm happy to tell it, but
Justin, you want to go?
Sure, yeah. So we went to Burning Man for the first time.
Yeah, we did.
What was that, 2022?
Sounds right.
And we ended up having a blast. So we got invited back to Camp Reverbia, which is the live music camp there.
Okay.
And I'm not exactly sure how we lined it up, but he ended up flying in on helicopter, I think, to come play with us that day of. And he loved hanging out with us. So Dylan can go from there.
Yeah, just very quickly. Yeah, I know that the guy who runs Reverbia, a guy named Doug, wonderful gentleman. He and his wife Wendy, they run the camp, and Doug had a connection to Scott Page, and Doug said, "I really want to bring Dark Side of the Moon to the Playa at Burning Man this year because it's the 50th anniversary." And our drummer Tanner had a relationship with Doug and pretty much said, "I've got the band who can do it for you. And it happens to be my band," right? Like, please, trust in us. We can pull this off. And after some convincing, he agreed to do it. And he said, "All right, Eminence Ensemble, we'll do Dark Side of the Moon," kind of like, I'm excited, but don't fuck it up. One of those things, right? And so we played a couple of nights of original music, and then the night for Dark Side happened. And Scott flew in on a helicopter, on like a private or a private jet or what have you, right into the Playa. We shook his hand, and then like a few hours later, we were on stage playing that set with him to, probably on the order of 10,000 people. It was amazing. And that was a really, really special experience. And I remember thinking, like, I'm so excited. I hope that he is as excited to do this as I am. And very quickly, he immediately had his cell phone out, and he was just videotaping the whole crowd and us, all smiles, like before we even played a single note. So I was like, okay, this guy's excited too.
As long as we don't blow it, we're in.
Yeah. So we did that, and it went really well. And then we've been in touch, and we've done it twice now since then. And so now we have a really good relationship with him, and we love playing with him. And it seems like he likes us too.
And it's Dark Side again that you're going to be doing in next year?
No, so this particular show that we're doing, the Goose After Party, is not going to be just Dark Side now. It's going to be more broadly just a Pink Floyd experience. So the set list is going to be a little more varied.
Are we going backwards or forwards with the set list? With the songs?
A little bit of both.
Yep.
A little bit of both.
Obscured by Clouds stuff? Obscured by Clouds is their best album, just so you know.
It's not talked about enough.
Is that What's the Deal is on that one, right?
Yes, What's the Deal? Yeah.
I'm putting that one in for set list requests.
I've seen the movie. It was a soundtrack for a movie called La Vallée that was in French about a heroin addict. And it was like the worst movie ever, but you watched the whole thing because you kept having the Pink Floyd songs pop up.
Right.
Too funny.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
just a huge shout out to Scott Page. I mean, he's, like Dan said, he's like a close personal friend. It's been really nice to like post on Instagram and have Scott Page like, dude, you guys are fucking awesome. And like, okay. It was really like an arrival moment for all of us. And it supported the team very well. So we're so grateful for Scott.
Piano players rarely play together. How is that having another keyboardist there?
Well, Scott plays sax.
He plays sax. So my fault. I thought he was a key player.
Okay. But when another keyboard player comes into my vicinity, I have to fight him.
Yeah, you're gonna have Joel, right?
Right, we're gonna have Joel. Exactly.
Yeah. No, Joel's actually shout out to Joel Cummins of Humphreys McGee as well. He's actually been my teacher since the beginning of COVID. We played on a gig together with Marcus Rezak, and we got connected before I joined Eminence. And then Tanner and him had a relationship too. And I was like, I've never played in a band like this. There's 2 guitarists and a lot of rock and a lot of crazy stuff. Help. And Joel, took me under his wing and showed me a lot. So
he's a great
love that
guy.
man. Yeah,
great guy. He dragged me all the way from Baltimore to Philly to see them because they played the night before my birthday.
Oh, really?
He's like, you got to come up.
Cool.
He's like, come up.
That's Joel. That's for sure, Joel.
Yeah, well, he could have dragged you to things that were a whole lot worse. Humphrey's show is
right, exactly. Philly in February is cold and dreary, though.
Yeah, it is.
I must say. I guess Denver and I never lived in Denver, but Denver always seemed more dreary to me. I lived in Boulder and Fort Collins, and Fort Collins was that was the most vanilla, boring ass town.
I mean, no disrespect. I don't think I could ever see myself living there, but it's nice.
I saw Dave Mason from Traffic play at whatever the club is by the campus, not the Aggie Theater, but the smaller club that used to be up there, which was weird because I was like, dude, you're Dave Mason from Traffic. What are you? What are you doing there?
Yeah, we do love our Colorado towns, though. We love playing with Aggie and all that, but yeah.
I love it. All right, very good. All right, anything you guys want to throw out before we wrap up?
Everyone keep their heads up. We're going through a crazy time. Music is keeping me sane.
Yeah, I turned off the TV. I'm not just whatever. I got rid of Twitter. I didn't get off it completely. I was bad. I've been a Twitter person for 16 years, but I'm gonna hang out on Blue Sky. It seems like there's a lot nicer people there. They've already banned Cattered, so.
I'll say one more thing. I want to reiterate what Justin said. Our hearts go out to everybody for so many different reasons. But I want to also restate call to action. If you want to support us, please go on the socials and follow us, comment on our posts, share them if you want. It goes a long way. Our little motto within the band is onward and upward, and we plan on giving you guys even more higher quality music and content. And we're going to keep going at this thing because we truly found a family with all the 6 of us, 7, including Kaylee. And we can't wait to give you guys more. So follow along.
We'll drop the links. We'll drop the links in the description there.
We appreciate you so much, Kevin.
Yes, and thank you guys so much for coming on. Yeah, hang out after I run the outro. Everybody watching, please like, subscribe. We're at All That Jam Pod on every platform you can think of. And remember, for real this time, even more than I normally mean it when I say it, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. We'll see you soon.